Whew. Well, we got some wind coming up. Hopefully this microphone's not hitting it. I think I can cover it. Try that. I can't stop using the underwater camera. We caught some fish, and my buddy's coming home. And what was funny, the last half of the day today, he was intent on using the steelhead gear, and I jumped out of the truck and hooked on the underwater camera. I kept on trying to film underwater. I just think it's a riot. You get to see all that stuff you don't normally see, right? You need to see what's going on, exactly how many fish are down there. And fish that, oh, there was a martin right behind the camera. Or a black mink. That was a mink. Cool. Anyway, so I got a minute. Before I get out of here, I just threw the camera down this run, I don't know, 10 times. I won't know what's on the camera till I get back. I don't want to kill the phone battery, the SD card reader, but anyway, while I'm here, let's see what's going on. Steve, I don't know if my story applies or not. It's taken me a long time to decide to write this and take a chance. I guess this will probably turn out to be pretty long, and I haven't seen anything. My late husband's family had a camp out in the Ocala National Forest from the time he was a kid, and they all had told me stories of seeing and hearing things out there. In later years, his parents bought a really nice piece of property out in the country in the area of Inverness, Florida, and moved up there when they retired. There's a man who bought property right next to theirs and was making his land into a wildlife preserve, rescuing exotic animals that people had bought and changed their mind about owning. What a sad gig that is, isn't it? A lot of irresponsible people out there when it comes to that. I remember one time when he was at my in-laws, they were talking about the man having lost some of his animals. Something strange had been happening. There were whispers and odd looks. People didn't think the woman should hear. My late husband was the oldest of 3 boys, so they didn't think of his mom and I should be worried about anything. I'm going to try to cradle myself around this thing from the wind. That's probably fine. Many times I had my husband, one of his brothers, his father, his mother, tell me about seeing something with glowing red eyes. My mother-in-law told me that sometimes there would be glowing red eyes looking in the windows at night. There were times when I was there that I had that feeling of being watched. It wasn't all the time or every time, it was just occasionally. I need to jump back in time just a bit. On September 11, 2001, the man who became my husband came knocking on my apartment door at 8:30 at night. I opened the door and was shocked to see him there. He's normally asleep at that hour because he went to work at 1 a.m. He said, "There are monsters in my room." Well, it was 9/11, and I had a lot of patients who were petrified due to the happenings of that day, so I just felt that he was reacting to that. Just as so many others were. Looking back, I'm not so sure. Over the years, I had many times where my mother-in-law told me that those red eyes were looking in the windows again. I never saw them. But there were times when I was there that I felt that I shouldn't go for a walk, or I should stay close to the house, or even go inside and stay. I've never been one to be afraid of open country. In fact, I've always loved it. I hunted and fished most of my life. My kids were raised fishing from the time they were in diapers, and they are all 3 capable with firearms. So running into this getting creeped out, as one of my daughters expressed it, was not a normal thing I would feel, especially out in the yard by the house, when there were other people around. Then it got to the point where I started having those same feelings at home, the house my husband grew up in. I lived there 10 years. My daughter reported seeing glowing red eyes in the backyard of that house. I never told her any of the stories about ending at the other house, but there were times when I would feel like I was being watched there too. Then on the night of April 11th, 2011, my husband went out to the garage, which he did every time he was having a bad day. About 10 to 15 minutes after he went back there, I had the weirdest thing happen. I felt as though something was holding me down on the bed, and I just wanted to die. I felt as though something wanted me dead. I was only able to move one arm, and I grabbed my phone and texted my sister and asked her to pray. That I didn't know why, but suddenly I just wanted to die. I guess I was held down by whatever for about 20 minutes, and I had the most awful feelings of despair hitting me, and then I was gone. I was back to normal. I couldn't believe what I had just experienced. It's going to go to my husband in the garage, but I just had a horrible, creepy feeling that got worse as I got closer to the door. And it was getting pretty dark out, which just made me run back to the bedroom, jump in bed, and turn on the TV. My husband had been a competition bodybuilder, but after that incident 7 years prior with a 9mm that left his right femur shattered, he had, on several occasions, gone out to work on things in the garage until I'd go out and drag him in at 2 or 3 in the morning. He did have bad days at times, but he also had some very definite plans for the future. In fact, he had just taken out a loan to update some things in the house his father built and some great plans for landscaping the yard. I tell you these things because I wanted you to know that he had definite plans for the future. At 2:24, I figured it was time to go bring him in. I absolutely know that God walked and talked me through the next things that happened. I did hear that still small voice guiding me, and well, that's a story in itself. I went to the garage to get my husband. He hadn't come in. As I said, that was nothing unusual. Sometimes he'd stay out there till 2 or 3 in the morning. When I went out there, I found him hanging in front of a mirror he had set up to watch himself. The timing, according to the coroner, was pretty much the same time I'd found myself pinned to the bed. There were things seen at that house after that as well. I never considered anything to do with Sasquatch until I heard the glowing red eyes in so many of these stories. I'd never heard anything about glowing red eyes until I heard my late husband and his family talk about them. I'd never heard of glowing red eyes attributed to the Sasquatch until I heard it on your channel. But I haven't looked up anything to do with Sasquatch in years. I would guess the last time I did was when my kids were little and we rented the movie Harry and the Hendersons. My oldest two are 40 and 39, so it's really been a while. I don't even remember what it was that caused me to put Bigfoot in the search bar, but I stumbled on your site and watch it every day. I've even passed it on to a couple people I thought would be interested, and they were. I don't know what anyone would make of any of this except that maybe I'm a nutcase. I've gone to several doctors, not telling the story, but having them evaluate me in this usual manner, and they say I'm as sane as anyone can be. I've heard the stories of Sasquatch, and now I've heard of Dogman, and I hear there are other beings out there. I don't know what the heck I ran into, but I want to be dead, and I believe it succeeded with my late husband. So that's my story. Please don't use my last name. I typed this out weeks ago, and so far haven't been able to bring myself to send it. Your request to Edgar in urgent message to a troubled viewer, March 19, 2021, made me think that maybe this should be out there for other people to be aware of. Thank you for all that you do for all of us. I've never told anyone this whole story. Melody from Tampa. All right, Melody. I appreciate you writing that out and taking that time and being brave enough to share that publicly with all the people here. And thank you very much. And obviously, that is an absolute heartbreaking story that you shared with us. Upsetting, alarming. It's very sad. And yes, you know, the red glowing eyes have been reported by literally thousands of people around the planet. Sometimes it's direct link with the Sasquatch sightings, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's just the red or orange or yellow or green glowing eyes, and that's all that's reported, but it is being reported thousands of times, right? And I'd imagine this video is being seen after Edgar's story. Eddie's story has been shared, and when I say there's more going on out there than just the Sasquatch beings being reported, listen to my words, because it's true. And listen to, for all of you out there watching this video, listen to Melody. There's things going on out there that are unexplainable and are not good. There's no way getting out of it, and there's no sense in not talking about it, right? So again, if any of you out there has anything that may be helpful to the community, to human beings as a whole, just share it. Just take all the courage that we have, suck it into yourself, use it, and sit down and write it out and share it. All right, it's going to help somebody. It's going to help somebody for sure. Hey Steve, use my name if you want. I really don't give a shit if someone has a problem with it. If someone wants to come and see me over this, I'll arrange for you to get my address. Yeah, come to my door, please. This is an elaboration on a 2-story email sent February 7, 2021. I don't know if you have read it already. Anyway, I sent it, and then a while later, hence this date, I proofed it. Huh, imagine that, proofing after I send it. Sounds like something I'd do. I'm changing my email, writing and sending technique. I realized I had missed some information that is pertinent to the story. I also realized in the second story I had added too much information. But these stories need to be heard for the benefit of all. And here is the rewrite of the two stories. I'm 62 years old. I've told this story once or twice to who I thought were close friends. Tell them anything except arguments and agreements. Well, they just shut me down. Well, fuck them. We don't talk much anymore. In the mid to late 70s, I worked in a shipyard in northern BC. The on-site security guard was a big man in his late 60s to early 70s. He stood 6'3", in his aged and hunched over state, and was about 260 pounds. His story, in my early days at 30 to 38 years old, I stood 6'6" at 280, and solid. I was prospecting in the Hazelton, BC area mountains. On one of my return trips to civilization, I was walking down a logging road, cutback after cutback. The next cut in the road is about 150 yards away with a small grove of trees in the turn. As I'm walking down, two of them came around the corner holding hands, a big one and a little one. They walked off the road into the shade. As I come up to the point at which they stepped off the road, I could see them standing in the shade. I assumed the big one was a female, and she was way bigger than me in all dimensions. As they were not a threat, I kept my .30-06 slung over my shoulder. I waved, without looking, and carried on walking. Just before I rounded the corner, I looked back to see them come out and carry on up the road. I spent 30 years in the bush, heard a lot of different sounds I cannot explain. That was the only time I'd ever seen them. I asked at that point if the unexplainable sounds were heard in the Hazelton Mountains. No, he says. Those sounds I heard when I was in northern Ontario. We never did figure what it was. We were there, I think he said, in the same area for 3 weeks. There was some weird shit, but we finished collecting samples and data and got the hell out of there. Skip ahead to September 2019. I can't remember the date. My lady and I are sitting out on the deck having an evening beverage. We're in the Columbia River Valley, Rocky Mountains on one side and the Purcell Range on the other. There was 200 or more head of cattle and 20 dogs in the valley west across the river from our location. All of them are yelling at the top of their lungs, so you can imagine the racket. I was thinking to myself, this is weird. Why are they all yelling? I didn't see anything about it. However, the dull roar, we were able to converse. My lady was sitting about 4 feet from the door. I was across from her. All of a sudden, from across the valley and coming from within a canyon, this loud roar started. All my hair stood on end. I'm sure hers did as well. A millisecond after the roar started, she was up and in the door. All the animals in the valley stopped for 2 or 3 seconds, total silence as the roar faded. Then all the animals started yelling again. Now, if you've ever been at a railroad crossing and waiting for an oncoming train, 50 yards on average from the crossing, the conductor will blow the horn. Even knowing that it's coming, when it does, it is known the tones of the horn are the most audible to animals, humans included. It generally starts your hair standing up and gives you a chill which lasts a few seconds. Now think of this. Lower the tones of the horn, increase the volume. The result is a hair-raising, bone-chilling vibration. Yes, vibration, not sound. I know this. I've been a rock musician and guitarist for 25 years. I know tones and notes. That is, every hair, every bone, every pore feels it. This is the most unmistakable yet most debated topic, whether the story is oral, passed for centuries, from generation to generation, with totems, masks, and dances. Tens of thousands of people sharing stories globally. Written. David Thompson in the 1700s, Lewis and Clark, Daniel Boone, to name a few. Recorded. Let's see how many pictures, videos, audio recordings it take to not acknowledge. Go figure. Great avenue of honest communication for those in the know and those who are searching for answers. You're doing an awesome job, brother. Keep the information rolling. We all know it's working. As you can tell from my intro, I'm a no-nonsense kind of guy. I like it this way. Robert Okabe. Right on, Robert. Appreciate it, man. Absolutely appreciate it. And I appreciate the strength you carry yourself with. It's much needed in our community today, man, as you know. It's endless. Especially Hazelton, there's a lot of shit goes on up there, as you know. There's no shortage of sightings up there. My first 2 encounters still gave me nightmares, and they happened April of '93 and July of '96. To this day, I get petrified of going to the woods or anywhere near them. I will not camp along rivers or lakes, and if I do, I make sure that there are other campers close by, while having at least bear mace with me in my car and within 5 feet of my tent. We are taught that these things aren't real, but I know better. To make it short, my first encounter, I was fishing at this pond near South Billings, Montana, along the Yellowstone River. And I share these locations because others need to know that these beings are there. While fishing, I heard some splashing coming from my left and across the pond near this footbridge that I was sitting near. I shrugged it off. I heard it again, looked up, and about crapped myself. This giant stood up out of the water from about 75 yards away, looked right at me, and this damn thing locked eyes with me and was never bothered that I had seen it. It didn't run, yell, or anything other than locked onto me and casually walked into the tree line. It didn't run, yell, or anything other than locked onto me and casually walked into the tree line. At every few steps, it would look at me over its right shoulder. I started to gather my things. I walked out backwards to the parking lot. This other guy showed. I tried telling him what I just saw, and his reply was, "I see them a lot." I was bewildered, intimidated, scared, and was beside myself in disbelief. I've been close to a male African lion in a cage. No fear, like with this thing. And I've seen a great white up close. Nothing like this thing when it came to fear. The next day, after the ridicule that I got from my family and friends, my brother and a friend went with me back to that pond. Our friend, who was about 6'8", ended up having to raise his hand while standing on a stump next to where this thing walked past, and we measured it to be 9 foot tall and over 4 feet wide at the shoulders. He was auburn in color, a cone-shaped head, long hair in certain places, a flat-like face, darker in color, long arms, great physique, and it would have towered over both Shaquille O'Neal and pro wrestler Big Show, Paul Wright, in whom I've met both. My second encounter, just near the Res and Mountain Man site, also while fishing, involved me and my stepdad coming across a den that was dug out in the underside of a dry river embankment. I seen footprints in the mud, maybe 18 to 20 inches each. My stepdad blew it off. I knew better and reminded him of what I saw in Montana. He said it wasn't real. Then I spotted one from about 80 to 90 yards away, swaying from behind a tree. Needless to say, my stepdad then just became a believer. 2 nights later, several of us heard it yell during the 4th of July from maybe 100 yards or less. Then a few nights later, being woken up to the neighbor's dogs going crazy, this huge black hand reached through my bedroom window. It only opened a few inches from the bottom of the top. Being a mobile home, started reaching. The smell was like trash and feces, and the room window was about 8 feet off the ground. I got my ex-girlfriend up slowly and onto the floor, and then I stood up, and there it was. It was inches away from the window. It simply pulled its hand back, turned around, and walked away. That location is not even 200 yards away from where me and my stepdad saw it. And later that next spring, I went down there with my mother. She wanted to know more, but the footprints in the snow and mud, with those feelings in which we both got at the same time, was our last time near there. Growing up, my granddad, who was a World War II Army vet, his rancher friends, my mother's friends, and even retired Wyoming game and fish warden, warned me and my brother about these things, especially near the rivers. That's the big wind and the little wind. And they joined in Riverton, Wyoming, where we seen it. And from Dubois to Boyson Reservation and all the Wind River mountain range are these beings' backyard. I heard you recently read an article of a guy that saw one on top of the Wind River Canyon up on a ridge. That's about 18 miles from where we saw this one. And that came up to my home. It too was all black, like in his encounter. I've sensed her presence while trying to fish near Springfield, Missouri, and out along Stockton Lake near Springfield. The feelings of dread being watched just overwhelm me at sometimes. Myself and a group from this church I used to attend came across the same odor that I smelled at the den and my bedroom window while at Stockton Lake near this thick brush. Then this late June, me and my wife went through Wyoming, and sure enough, not far from the town of Buffalo, at this campsite, even though it was full of about a dozen fifth-wheel campers just off the dirt road, we saw a few X structures with at least 40 pines stripped of their branches. We left. My name is Justin. I'm 47. I'm from Wyoming. I grew up in the great outdoors. I used to hunt, still go fishing. I know that you're extremely busy, and that's great in what you're doing. I sent in my first 2 encounters, and the emails probably get lost. You just haven't got to them yet. That's okay, Steve. You can use my name, and thank you, Steve, for what you're doing, your stance on it, and standing up for everyone that comes to you. For the great backdrops and camera footage. My condolences on Macaroni. I lost my horse Breeze about 11 years ago. He was 5-year-old bay. Stay safe, Steve, and know that every single person on here has your back. Wow. Justin, thank you so much for sending that. I absolutely appreciate it. So does everybody else. You wouldn't even have to ask them to know that everybody else appreciates that you took the time out to write that and send it in and share it with everybody through me. Appreciated. And you're right. There had to have been a place come up. It just has to be a place for everybody to be safe and share. Knowledge is huge. Giving the word to the people is huge. It's absolutely powerful. You take it away from those people who want to suppress it, right? This is the only way to do this. Everybody gets a chance to talk. Everybody has a voice, and everybody's equal. All right, what do we got? Mark this is red first. Hi, Steve. Thank you for helping people. Thank you for reminding us to stop being afraid. Fear had a big impact on my life for a long time. Fear is a real beast. It must be contained or it will consume us. I believe in God and that He created us. Everything we see and don't see, even Bigfoot. Thank you for your no bullshit approach to life. I've never seen one of these beings. One night in the woods beyond my house on the outskirts of Baton Rouge, I was listening to barred owls calling back and forth up and down the canal. The owls had babies that were calling to them loud, waiting for the food. This is normal, nightly occurrence. I was up there for an hour or more, just taking in God's creations and the glory of it all. There were lightning bugs all around too. They were so peaceful to me. All of a sudden I heard a woman yell like she was seeing a roach or something. Then it got super loud, like a woman who knew she was about to be murdered. It was so loud for 4 or 5 seconds that I had to cover my ears. It hurt my ears. I felt pain, sadness, discomfort, fear, and probably many other things all at the same time. All my hairs were standing like metal wires. I immediately ran inside and locked the door. I was genuinely concerned for some woman's life, and I didn't know what the hell to do about it. I waited inside for a couple minutes and then went back out to my 100-pound Rottweiler. The dog just laid down and didn't do much barking. No barking. She was normally barking at her own shadow. I heard loud crashing in the woods going away from me, and that was it. You're a good man. I thank you for giving crazy people a safe place to talk. Thank you, brother. Have you ever had boiled crawfish? It's crawfish season. If you're ever in the area, give me a call. I'll cook us up some great food. My name is Ben. Ben? What do you mean have I ever heard of crawfish? Are you kidding me? I've ate table loads of those things in the South. And thank you very much for the kind offer. And thank you even more for taking your time out to write us that email. And obviously you've heard people talking here. You know that those screams have been heard by many people, and they're alarming, as they should be. If any voice can actually make your ears hurt with a loudspeaker attached to them, that's something else, right? That's something pretty intimidating. What do we got? I gotta get going. I'm starting to get really starting to fall asleep from being on this awkward angle. Hi, Steve. My name is Josh from a small town in Colorado. My experiences wasn't really a sighting as much as an encounter. My family and friends went up into the mountains, Pike National Forest, to play around. We're camping, sharing a tent, and about 7 of us inside. I have no idea the time, but I guess about 1 a.m. or so. I'm a very heavy sleeper, but I trust my sixth sense explicitly. The world just went quiet, which is what woke me up. I opened my eyes and listened intently. Started looking around in a groggy state. and looked up to the top of a 10-man tent and couldn't see anything. My eyes wandered around the tent at my friends. All of them were all currently passed out. I want to pause for a sec to clarify. My dad was Army. He has always taught me to be honest, be confident in what you say or do. Above everything, trust your gut. That being said, this is the first time I've ever said this to anyone. I was around 14 or so in high school and was a hefty big boy and had pretty big hands. As I lay there waiting and listening to the sounds around me, I hear a twig snap on the ground behind us. As I snapped my head towards that sound, I saw this huge shadow of a hand, huge hand, dragging along our tent wall. I put my hand close to it, at the time, I wore size large gloves, and it was easily double that size. I looked around, my friends still asleep. It started circling the tent, dragging its hand along as it got over my head. I did something stupid. I reached up and smacked the hand. There was a soft, surprised grunt. I could feel the stunned feeling, and then the soft, heavy sounds moving away from the tent. I went back to sleep and got up the next morning to look around. Saw nothing. I asked my dad, as he was the only one bigger than me present, if he had got up to pee during the night. He responded, "No, your sister was sound asleep all night and I didn't want to wake her. She was recovering from an ear infection." He asked why, and I didn't answer. I just said I was curious. My gut told me it meant no harm, but the size still amazes me. Anyways, I know I've rambled on, and I've never shared this with anyone before. I wasn't quite sure what to make of it. The place it happened, I grew up dirt biking all the time. It felt like being watched a couple times, but your channel has convinced me to come forward and share. Thanks for all you do. God bless. Feel free to use my name, and thanks for your time. Wow. Alright, man. I appreciate that. Let me know that you're probably one of the very few people to high-five a Sasquatch and make contact, right? There sure is no end. There's no end of amazing experiences being shared here, is there? There's no shortage. People are gaining confidence, man. That's what happens when you erase the bullshit, kick the bullshit to the side, give everybody an equal, strong voice to share, and show them respect. Look what happens. Knowledge comes pouring out. Who knows how many people have emailed in. And it sure is something else to witness, isn't it? But anyway, keep sharing, keep talking. Make sure you educate your children, your family, and the people close to you. You have to. Speak open, speak honest, look people square in the eye, and tell them the honest truth. You have to, all right? It's very, very important. Nothing's ever going to change for the better unless the good people's voices are heard, and people are made safe, and people are treated with respect, and people are treated equal. And things are going to change. But anyway, I'm hungry. Time to go get some food. See if I might be able to squeeze another day of fishing out tomorrow or not. I don't know. We'll see. Share my story, howtohunt.com. Tell my story, howtohunt.com. Get it out here. We'll get to it.